Hi, Yolanda. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Well, I have a lot of questions for you, so let's jump right in. So first of all, creative blocks. Is this something you experience, and how do you get around them when you get a creative block?
I have experienced them in the past, but I'm not subject to that particular issue at the moment. In fact, it's the opposite. I actually find myself unable to switch off my inspiration, and that's because it comes from reading, conversations, random things, films. I make sure that I keep my input, fresh information, other people's creativity. I keep that flowing, so it usually feeds into mine.
Oh, I like that because how you describe it as an input, like putting fuel into a car. You wouldn't expect to get fire if you didn't put any fuel in your own engine, right? So that's a really good way of looking at it. And how do you like to approach songwriting? Do you have any habits that you use to get the creative juices flowing that inspire you?
Yes, the main thing I think is having access to writing down something the minute it pops into your head, because those creative ideas can come at random times. Funnily enough, I wake up quite early. I don't always like waking up early, but unfortunately, by about 5, 6 a.m., can't
Wow.
sleep. So I don't always get up, but I have a lot of the processing that has happened through the night often kind of hits me that time in the morning. So I make sure I always have a way of writing things down. Whether it be, I don't like to use my phone, but I will use the voice recorder. I think that a key thing is to capture the moment, in even if it's an inconvenient kind of space. Just grab it and put it down somewhere. You can always go back to it, and it will then spur some ideas. So I write a lot of my songs like that. Or they start that way, anyway.
That's cool. So what does it mean to you to be an artist? Because you're obviously a very well-known session musician, and you've had, I mean, one of the most unbelievable careers as a session player. But primarily, you're an artist, and I guess even with sessions in the past, you approached it as an artist. What does it mean for you to be an artist, given your session background?
I have to say that it's actually given me a bit more empathy for the person standing at the front of the stage on the mic, the person whose name is in the headline there and on the front of the ticket. I did have respect, but now I have more empathy, so more understanding about what it's like to be them. And it's not an enviable role, and there's a lot of pressure involved. There's a lot of putting yourself on the line. That as a session musician, I can put my ability to contribute on the line, and be judged based on that. So that's my commitment and my risk, if you like. But it's not the same as the pressure of being the person who people are coming to see. So it's a very different kind of responsibility, and I understand more about what that's like now. So it's definitely changed my perspective, and also I'm also aware of what it's like to work with musicians who aren't committed or disciplined or prepared as they should be. So that empathy as an artist has also occurred, that I can see why they might have had problems with musicians at times, session musicians. We have a role to fulfill and a job to do, and the artist doesn't need the complications of having to micromanage team members, band members, and all of that. Everybody has to take care of their role so that the artist can focus on the very complex and the heavy responsibility role of being the artist. So it's a great perspective. I would love for a lot of musicians to understand what it's like to be the artist, so that they could move through the music business, with more awareness of that. Just more sympathy, more professionalism, all of that stuff.
That's a really good point, because I guess by taking that leading position as the artist, those skills are then transferable when you're doing a session, because of that empathy, that understanding of being in that position. I think that's a really, really good way of thinking of it. I actually never thought of it that way. And imagine this: so a young musician, they see you playing in the Hands Them Alive DVD. They come and see your amazing band perform. What advice would you have for that young musician who makes a decision that they want to make a life as a professional musician, but perhaps face opposition from family and friends who say, "Oh, this isn't a viable job"?
I think as a young person, you really need support because it's a vocational endeavour, and you don't make money often when it's vocational. You have to have all of the structured training has to be done, and it doesn't matter actually in terms of whether you're a doctor or any long-term kind of vocational role takes training. That takes time. You need support of some kind. If you don't have support, then you have to support yourself and be prepared to divide your time up with supporting yourself, so having a job, as well as keeping the training going, keeping all of the work, the networking, all of the other stuff that you're unaware of needing to be done. You have to keep all of that going, but you also have to support yourself. So my advice is to, while you're young, and it's that time when you would have that support anyway, make the most of that time. Practice as much as you can. You don't have to do a full-time job before you start a family. Use that time well. When you go to college, it's very tempting to do that thing that maybe other people doing other degrees do, where they waste their first year drinking, partying, and all of that. That time is practice time. It really is, because we have to do the 10,000 hours in terms of the repetition, playing the instrument, getting really good. And even very talented musicians still have to put the actual physical time, creating the muscle memory for the instrument, and the learning experiences to do with kind of consuming or absorbing music. That takes, you can't speed up listening to a 5-minute long song, and you have to listen to as many 5-minute long, 4-minute, 3-minute long songs as you can. That takes physical time. If you're drunk or just wasting time, you've lost that time. And when you're older, you don't have that time back. So that's when you have to do a job, and that eats up a huge amount of your time, so you can't practice. So my advice is, first of all, don't waste your time. Practice while you have that space. Get as good as you can on your instrument, because you have to be ready. When an opportunity comes your way, you have to be ready. And that takes preparation. That's your space to do that, to become ready.
Brilliant advice. Yeah, because as we get older, we get busier, don't we? And then you don't get that practice time, that same freedom you once had. I think that's true. Don't waste time. Yeah, and it's so easily done, I think, as well, because when you're young, you have this feeling of, oh, I got forever, but you don't. It's you have to use time wisely and spend it like you would money. You have to be careful with it. And I think it's easy for younger ones to just feel much like they feel invincible. They can feel they have this unlimited time source. So if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice before you started on your journey, what business or life advice would you give yourself?
If it's advice, knowing what I know now to my younger self, it would be, do everything you're doing, carry on. Because I would be in this position now, knowing that it's led me here. So it was the right thing to do. But we don't have that security to know that what we're doing is going to pay off and that we're going to end up where we want to be. So my advice is to my younger self is, trust the decisions you're making, trust yourself, follow your instincts, learn from the lessons that you're given. Don't try so hard not to repeat the same mistakes. Keep trying new things, even things that you don't think you want to do, so that you know that after having done it, it wasn't right, but at least you've tried. So it's multifaceted. There's not one thing I would say. It was all of the things I just listed are things that I did, which is taking, accepting invitations to play, playing in genres that it wasn't a good fit, but really did me well in terms of teaching me how to, be an all-round musician. But to just continue, just keep going, keep working at it, but don't repeat the same mistakes, try new things, and just build up your armory, and then make use of what you learn and apply it.
Good advice. And would you say that you come across to me as someone who's very happy and content? And I think it can be difficult in this line of work to find that happiness and that contentment. And how do you feel about that? Do you feel that this happiness and contentment is from acknowledging where you are, or is it through attaining goals?
Okay, so the happiness and the contentment are two separate things. Happiness is being comfortable with where you are. So you're not in a fight or a struggle of frustration or unfulfilled, unrealized ambitions or goals. Contentedness is, I can relax a bit now. I'm pleased with how things are. That's not me. I'm actually very highly ambitious. I'm very driven. I work really hard. I'm not content because I'm always striving forward. So you can aim for happiness whilst still retaining the energy to move forwards or advance your goals. And that to me is the key thing, because to be frustrated and struggling with the pace of things, they're not moving the way you want them to move. There's setbacks, 2 steps forward, 1 step back all the time, or worse still, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. All of that is incredibly frustrating. So it's learning how to actually sit with where you are at that time. That creates a sense of, you lose that sense of frustration. You are actually more settled with things as they are, but you also are not content. And so you keep striving forward and you keep trying to make those changes. The happiness for me has been finding out how to get that balance of just being, okay, I accept that this is where I am right now. I know where I'm going. I know how to get there, but I know it's going to take some time. The way I coin it is, playing the long game, I suppose, which is to be patient, keep working, but just calm down. Don't be so stressed about things.
Would you say you're content with your journey, in the sense that your decision of what your goals are and what you're doing to take you from where you are today to where you want to be?
I'm ecstatic about the direction that I'm heading in. After having done my first session as a paid musician, because obviously I was in bands with friends, but my first session, you could call it a session, was when I was 19, and it seems like pretty much 30 years later, I decided to just opt out, really, from that. So you will see me occasionally, I'll be playing with other people now and again, but they'll just be one-off engagements, nothing too heavily committed. And that's a decision I made that I'm so over the moon about having made that decision. It's incredibly fulfilling.
What would you say is the most memorable session that you have ever done?
Wow. I've got a few, so it's hard for me to choose, actually.
Or you can do a few if you like.
All right. Well, it wasn't because it was the most most well-known musicians that I had actually recorded for, but recording B.B. King's 80th anniversary album was really special. Yeah, that was incredible because we had one day where we just set up. I met B.B. King the night before, and then the next day we were to come in and record 4 tracks. And that was with Eric Clapton, Roger Daltrey, Mark Knopfler was supposed to turn up as well, and Van Morrison. But Mark Knopfler didn't show up, so I think we did his track without him. But Van Morrison, Eric Clapton, Roger Daltrey did show up. So in one day, not only was I recording with B.B. King, but I was also recording with those guys too, and very famous songs, So that was a massive, massive highlight as a session musician. And it was also really nerve-wracking. I was really proud of myself for, doing the job, getting the job done. My bass tracks survived any potential edits that made it onto the album. And actually, Van Morrison and Eric Clapton both... Is it Eric Clapton? I think so, yes. Yeah, both of them released those tracks on their own albums as well as a collaboration with BB. So I was actually on BB's album and on Eric's and Van Morrison's as well. So, I've got this kind of lovely little thing to say, I've played with these legends, but that was all done in one day. So that made that particular day really special.
That's quite a day. I bet. I mean, wow! I bet that was fantastic. You must have been like walking away from the studio at the end of the day with a buzz in your step. How did it feel like when you finished? What was going through your head?
Well, it was fast, to do 4 tracks in one day like that. Anyway, because most of the time, I don't know. Sometimes you're doing a whole album one day, or maybe half. But usually you get called for 2 tracks, maybe, or something like that in one day. And then we were recording live. Great drummer, Ian Thomas, very professional, not the sort of guy that needs to do lots of takes, which is what they needed. They needed people who they wouldn't have to spend time repairing later, because there wasn't the time for that. And people at their level expect musicians of the highest caliber. So the expectation is that we do 2 takes, maybe 3, and all of them are nailed. And it's a case of which one did we prefer, as opposed to which one has the least amount of errors or something like that. There's none of that. It's, you got to hit it when the red light goes on. It's got to be a take every time. And of course, we weren't 100% perfect all the time, but I think I might have done 1 repair, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it was nerve-wracking because there's a bit of pressure on, But I mean, by then, when was this? 2000 and something, 4 or 3 or something. I've been doing this for quite some time by then, So had that experience, and it was just fun because the musicians, we're all nudging each other and being all sort of silly, fanboy, fangirl, but trying to be, so professional. But of course, our heroes in front of us, sort of thing. But we're just observing them as seeing what all those kind of guys get up to when they're all together, and it was very interesting, all the banter and the jokes between them, and that one of the artists was quite nervous himself about the occasion, which was interesting. So they're just people. One of the artists was asking if what they were doing was good enough to us, saying, was that all right? I wasn't feeling great. He opened up to feeling a bit insecure and a bit nervous. So, they're just people with famous faces in the end,
Amazing. What an experience. That's so cool. What has been the biggest challenge you've ever faced as an artist?
As an artist, I only considered or was able to actually label myself as such in the last year and a bit. Before that, I was a musician who liked to make my own music, always downplayed it, always spoke of it as nothing, because I had my session career, that was my real job. The artist thing was a bit fun. So I always felt a bit embarrassed having my name up in any kind of announcement using my name. So I always had band names previously. So the real challenge as an artist, which really began when I first started making my own music, even if I was reluctant to be described as such, the real challenge was the beginning of the whole thing, which was the newness of standing up at the mic, speaking to an audience, being responsible for how the evening goes. You're hosting the event too. You're not just performing on bass. So what you say matters. You can put people at ease. You can get them chuckling. You can say awkward stuff, which is so there's a bit more, like I said before, quite a lot of pressure. That needs to become a comfortable role that you have to sort of get used to, and that can take a bit of time. Some people are absolute naturals. They're just all about that from the off. That was not me. I was so used to standing next to the drummer at the back, and I liked that, So the biggest challenge has been the spotlight, really. But now I have no problem with it at all. How I speak with you now is how I speak on stage. I'm just the same person. I don't have a persona. I don't have a, alter ego. This is it. So it's easy to be on stage because I'm comfortable in my own skin. So as I am comfortable off stage, I'm comfortable on stage. It's the same.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think all the best live performing artists are the ones that are just being themselves, because I think that translates, it comes across to the audience, and I think they can tell. When it's a persona, I think you can detect it, and it must be tiring for people who do it that way, because when you're acting, it's a constant energy that you're giving. Whereas when you're being yourself, it's just natural. You're doing what you do every day. And would you say that for those who want to be an artist, would you say that it's important to, get comfortable with yourself, whatever that means? I guess that could be something that comes with experience and age. But do you feel it's something that should be considered and given some thought?
I don't know. I think that you have to make a decision about what kind of presentation you want to give. So the frontman persona role is legitimate, and that can be learnt just in the way as any other skill, which means that you don't have to be yourself on stage, and that's fine. But like you mentioned, there's a potential for it to get very tiring because it has to be maintained whilst you're in the public eye, which is not always on stage. Now there's interviews. Now there's meeting fans. And it can be tiring because then you present a version of yourself that's not who you are. And you can spend 8 months of the year touring and interviews and promotion not being who you are. And that can be very tiring. And I say all of this from experience, having witnessed how some artists work and how others do. So some of them are incredibly as they are off stage, as they are on stage, and then others have a persona. I've seen both versions and they both work. I wouldn't care to say which is better, but they're both valid. So a young person coming up could put on the Elvis suit sort of thing. You don't walk around in an Elvis suit, right? This is a figuratively speaking. Okay, Elvis suit. I've got enough Elvis impersonation.
You heard it here first.
Laughing at my own joke. My kids tell me off about laughing at my own jokes. Okay. Anyway, my point is that when you put the clothes on, you're in the role. That's it. You step on stage, take a deep breath, you're performing. You take off your stage clothes, take off your makeup, take off your Elvis suit, and you're Joan down the market again, Yeah. And it's a place of reality and a place of people who know who you are. They're not famous friends, they're actually proper friends, and you need that space. So that's something that you can do, but it comes with a price. And the other side of it is when you're very much who you are, you're exposing your character and your actual real tastes, your real opinions. That also comes with a price because people will judge you and they will be seeing you because you're being you on stage. So that's the other bit that can be difficult. Ultimately, it's a difficult thing to do, to be a performer. And
I didn't consider that because you're right. There's a challenge to both sides because the persona you make up, you can make that up to fit the situation within the confines of what that persona is. But when you're being yourself, I guess when you're being judged, you really feel like you're being judged because it's you. I suppose that also has its own taxing effect on you. And then I guess you could feel like you're not good enough or whatever.
Well, that goes back to your original question about being comfortable in your own skin. I think that whatever decision you make, whichever angle you decide to come at this from, whether it's a persona or, girl next door, you need to be comfortable with that decision. You have to sit with that and actually accept that there's going to be stuff that's going to come at you, but you have made a decision and you're comfortable with it. That's the comfortable in your own skin kind of thing. It's not necessarily your actual real self in terms of the public eye, but you have to be comfortable with that, whatever decision you make about how to navigate the minefield of being a public figure. It's important because there's a lot of mental illness. So let's say illness. What I mean is just insecurity and things that affect your health mentally when you're in the public eye. It's very difficult. A lot of people reach for alcohol and drugs or behaviour that compensates for other things, and there's more chance of looking for this external support structure when you're standing on shaky ground within your own self. You need to be strong. You need to be very strong to withstand the criticism, the failure, the setbacks, and strong to withstand the praise, because the praise can be quite toxic for your own ego and give you a false sense of who you are. And the moment that's taken away, who are you without people telling you how great you are, right? So it's all a bit of a minefield. You have to have a good, strong sense of self, hold on to that, and keep people that come with you at the very beginning close, because they're the people that have seen you before the ego monster potentially takes over. So yeah, you are right, comfortable in your own skin, but also comfortable in your decision about how to present yourself as a performer.
That's some of the best advice I think I've ever heard. Brilliant, actually. And in a world where many write music at home with a computer, how important do you feel is musical collaboration?
I think that the tools, the technology, is giving musicians a false sense of their own God-like status in terms of making music. We can do it ourselves now. We can do it ourselves with all of the help, with all the plugins, samples, and all the rest of it. But actually, I think music, the making of music, is a reflection of society. So society in terms of association, and also society in terms of the stories that come from being part of society. So we're singing about life, we're singing about interactions with others, we're telling a story, even if it's just how that stuff is impacted on us, it's still relational. And so it doesn't feel right to communicate what music is alone. And I feel that even though we have these maestros, amazing musicians and young people now who really can do it all, and I've heard some amazing work from these guys, it's working out great for them in terms of social media. They have lots of followers and the rest of it. But I have done both, where I've made a record alone and made a record with a group, and now I'm making a record properly in terms of co-production and all the rest of it with more than one person. In fact, I've got a specific co-production, co-writing partner now. His name's Nick Linick, and he's incredible. And what I've noticed is that I bring 100% of me to the table, and then I get another 100% of someone else. It's not half and half makes a whole. It's two whole people. Two whole people come together and bring this beautiful conjoining, of ideas and input, and also, just pulling back a little bit when you're going too far down the prog rock route or something. We all need a little bit of tempering, sometimes, because we can be self-indulgent. It's just good to have that reflection. So I agree that musicians are highly skilled lately with certain elements, but I don't think that technology can replace a communion. We need to be working together collaboratively. I think it benefits the music, and it communicates, again, what I said at the beginning, it communicates what music actually is a reflection of, which is society. It's people, it's not one, it's many.
I agree, yeah. I mean, the music then has more meaning and more value, I think, when it's done that way. And two minds are better than one. Nothing's better than working with human beings as opposed to a keyboard and a DAW.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is, so this is the concluding question. What would you say has given you the greatest joy that you've experienced? And that could be as an artist, as a session player, or an experience relating to that. What single thing really sticks with you as giving you the most joy that you've experienced?
That's really hard to answer because I'm in process.
Oh, brilliant.
Right? Yeah. It's such a new thing for me, this former session player artist transition, that I'm finding those moments that you just said, like, oh yeah, that was yesterday's amazing moment. Oh my God, there's another new one. It's just constant. As a session musician, one of the best experiences I had was when I was asked to sing Purple Rain for a Hans Zimmer concert. We were in Oberhausen, and I'm not a singer. And my singing was, let's say, not my proudest moment, but the feeling of being up front on the mic and singing that song, which I didn't actually know. I only knew it as a fan. I'd never sung it before. I'd never even played it on bass before. I had to learn it in soundcheck. But everything is, honest. But anyway, whatever. I was a bit upset. Prince had passed away. My dad was passing away. He died not long after that. And I was really emotionally, unstable, should we say, a bit shaky. And I decided to take on this invitation from Hans to sing the song. So I sang it and, sang the first verse. And then I was reading lyrics because I couldn't see anything. I didn't know them very well and I couldn't see the lyrics very well. So I was like peering down like this. And then I looked up to sing Purple Rain, which is everybody knows what the chorus is. Sorry. But all the fans of Hans's had their iPhone lights on and stuff. And I got carried away with that feeling of this energy from all those people really focused in on actually us. But I was the person delivering the lyrics. So it came to me, it hit me like a hammer of a wave of, I don't know, I guess that's what front people experience often, but it was the first for me. And that was amazing. And the other side of that, as an artist, I have been working as an artist on and off, like I said, unofficially, for about 20 years, really. I've put records out in the past, not with any real intention, but I've done it anyway. And I've finished the first single with my band, Project PH, and it was broadcast last week for the first time on radio. And those lyrics mean a lot to me. They're very, very specific, and I know what I mean by them. There's a certain generality about it, but also I know what I mean by those words. And I heard them being broadcast on national radio, because it was on Jazz FM as well as My Soul Radio. And the thrill I had from that, it was a private moment, right? There's no audience. But the thrill I had from that, because it's what actually personified for me. It's a long journey, and it was a culmination of that journey. And the feeling I had was pure joy, really, just to have reached that point. It's a small landmark for some people. For me, it was massive.
That's amazing. Oh, wow. 3 amazing experiences there. And what I was really happy to hear is that there were so many, because one of the things we want to do, we want to encourage people to consider going down the musician route if that's something they really believe in, something they really want to do. And it's a thing we don't talk about very much, the joys that we experience doing this work. And I think those glimpses of joy that we get along the way is what kind of keeps us going, isn't it? And by the way, congratulations on being in a period of time right now where you're experiencing that joy in what you're doing, because it's good to know, it's good to be self-aware that you've got something great going and that you can really enjoy it because of that. So I look forward to seeing what you do with the band and hearing more of your music. Where's the best place to go and to listen to your work?
Well, we generally play at Ronnie Scott's. They do these later shows from about 11 p.m, so it's quite late, called the Late Late Shows, and they're on Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays. We usually play a Friday and a Saturday night of every month. Our next ones are coming up actually this week as we do this conversation. I'll be doing one in a few days, 2 in a few days. Next one's December 29th at Ronnie Scott's again. And then basically I'm playing every month, 3-4 gigs a month at the moment. It should increase, and I hope to get more outside of London. But yeah, I have a gig list. If anybody's on Songkick, they'll find Yolanda Charles Project PH. And then you can see all of my gig listings get updated every time there's a new date that's put in the what they call the tour schedule. It's not really a tour, but as they come up, you'll see new dates. So just follow me on the socials, Project PH, and you'll find out what we're doing and where we'll be.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to hearing what you do.
Thank you. It was really pleasant talking to you.